and get started here. So welcome to our last in our series on common logical fallacies. We've been going through different logical fallacies for the past 3 weeks. This is our fourth week in an effort to have better thinking, better conversations, better ways to disagree well. And so we aren't just trying to manipulate each other. We aren't trying to use these manipulative ways of speaking to prove our point, or just kind of put the other person down where they can't really have a conversation back. Logical fallacies tend to end fruitful conversation and communication. So we've looked at a lot of different ones. We'll look at 6 more today. The first one is the appeal to nature. This fallacy assumes that something is good or right simply because it's natural, or that something is bad or wrong simply because it's unnatural. So examples might be, it's unnatural for people to live in cities. Humans were made to live in nature, so modern society is bad. Or natural medicine is always better than pharmaceuticals. Not everything natural is good. Arsenic is natural. Don't want to take that. And not everything artificial is bad. Vaccines can be artificial and life-saving. Whether something is natural doesn't automatically make it moral, healthy, or wise. There are lots of natural things that can be bad. There are things in nature like animals eating their young. Should we do that because it's natural? Jonathan Swift thought so, maybe. It was a parody, but still, we don't eat our young, even though it's a natural thing to do. So that's a logical fallacy, just kind of appealing to nature to say something is right or wrong based on whether it's natural or not. So next is the composition division. These are actually 2 related fallacies. The composition fallacy is assuming that what's true for the parts must be true for the whole. The division fallacy, the opposite, assuming that what's true for the whole must be true of its parts. So examples. Each committee member is wise and thoughtful, so the committee's decision must be wise and thoughtful. Not necessarily. The other side is the church made a controversial decision, so each member must agree with it. Not necessarily. Or you could say, the church does a lot of good things in the world, so every member in the church must do a lot of good things in the world. Maybe. Not necessarily. We don't define a group by its individual parts, and we don't define individuals by the group they tend to be in. We might have a bad experience with a group. Doesn't mean every individual is the same way or subscribes to that way of thinking or does that thing. We have to do it on an individual basis. So that's kind of a logical fallacy in this sense of a group's nature isn't always defined by its members, and individuals don't always reflect the decisions of a group or the actions of the group they belong to. That kind of fits in this overgeneralization, and it's kind of easy to say, oh, this group does this, so all these people must be this way. That's what often builds barriers between us in communicating, assuming something about people based on their group, or assuming something about a larger group based on some of the individuals of that group we may have some sort of knowledge of. Next is loaded question. This fallacy occurs when the question contains a hidden assumption that traps the person responding. It forces them to accept something as true without having the chance to challenge it. So examples might be, why are you trying to ruin the worship service with these new song choices? That assumes I'm trying to ruin the worship service. They just want to know why I'm doing that. So to answer that, I'd be then affirming their whole thing that, yes, I am trying to ruin worship. Or, have you stopped ignoring the church budget? Assuming then that we're ignoring the church budget. These are loaded questions. And so often you have to not even answer and get back to the thing of, wait a minute, why do you think we're ignoring the church budget? Or something like that. So these are loaded questions, just trying to trap the individual to answer that way. So you admit you're ruining worship. You admit you're ignoring the church budget, whatever it may be. Then you have the middle ground fallacy. This fallacy assumes that the compromise between 2 positions must be the correct one just because it's the middle. So examples might be, one side says God created the world in 6 literal days. The other says the universe is 13 billion years old. So the world must be 6.5 billion years old. Nope, that makes no sense. Or some people say racism is systemic, others say it doesn't exist at all. The truth must be somewhere in between. Not necessarily. Sometimes middle ground is helpful. Doesn't always mean the right answer is the middle answer. Sometimes even the middle compromise might be the best way forward, but it may not mean it's the right way forward. Sometimes you have to settle for the best rather than the right. But you don't just have two sides and say, well, the middle choice is the correct answer. That's the middle ground fallacy. Next is special pleading. This fallacy happens when someone applies a rule or a principle to others, but then makes an exceptions for themselves or their group without justification. Example might be, everyone should follow the church rules except for when I feel led by the Spirit to do otherwise. Or the church van cannot be used for non-church purposes, but staff can use it for personal reasons. That's special pleading. It's making exceptions without consistent reasoning undermines credibility and fairness. If we believe in a principle, we should apply it across the board, unless there's a legitimate, clearly explained reason, why not? Then last, we have appeal to ignorance. This fallacy argues that the lack of evidence proves something to be true or false. No one has proven God doesn't exist, so God must exist. Or there's no evidence that the outreach event was a bad idea, so it must have been a success. No, we don't know that. Just because something hasn't proven false doesn't mean it's true, and vice versa. Absence of evidence isn't the same as evidence of absence. We have to go further than what's unknown. Some might say, well, we don't know. Unicorns don't exist. There's no proof they don't, so they must exist. You can say maybe they existed at one point. We don't know for sure than everything in the world, but it's not an argument. That makes sense? So we've gone through several of these different logical fallacies, and there's so many. There's a bunch more. Basically, anytime you can think of a bad way to argue, there's probably a logical fallacy there. The point is that logical fallacies often break up good communication dialogue. It doesn't allow us to disagree well with each other, to have fruitful conversation, to actually learn from each other with good arguments, with evidence, with actual logic. We can maybe kind of see, okay, maybe I'm not completely right on this. Because if somebody on the other side may actually have some really good points, but if they use logical fallacies, you never get to those good points. So we can't actually see, well, maybe there's something to this. I may still think I'm right, but maybe I can say I can understand why they are this way. Or maybe I'm not fully right and they're not fully right. Together we could find the right answer. But when we use these logical fallacies, it's more about winning and less about learning and dialoguing and having conversation. But so much of our community conversations, our news, everything else is all about winning the argument or making it look like we won the argument. Because even in debates or something like that, most people don't go back and look at everything, all the arguments. It's what little zingers stick out. And they say that's who won the debate. So people are trying to even use these logical fallacies because it might just seem like, oh, that was a gotcha moment. We're more about gotcha moments than about good conversation. And this isn't just about the news or politics. It happens in churches all the time. It happens in Rotary clubs and businesses and homeowners associations. Everywhere there's a group of people who have a stake in something, you're often going to find these logical fallacies at use trying to get people to side with us or go with some decision. So being aware of them out there, but also in ourselves, can help have better, fruitful dialogue. So if we can start modeling that in our little spaces, whether it's the church or the homeowners group or the civic club or whatever, it can start expanding out further in the world. Questions, comments, fallacious remarks? All right, so we're taking a break from Tiny Topics in August. We got other things going on. We got Band Book Club next week. We got Read and Reflect with Pastor Stephen on August 10th after worship. We're talking about learning from the Germans by Susan Nyman. And if you haven't read the book, come. I'll have some handouts. There'll be some interesting conversation. And then we'll go back into some Tiny Topics in September. Thank you all very much.